Against the Ropes podcast.
Against the Ropes, number one.
Against the Ropes podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. AtR podcast, Gio Garcia here alongside Christian Mosqueda. Another big week in boxing. We are back, ladies and gentlemen.
Man, we're back, Gio, and what a weekend, man. Where do we start, dude? It was for all the belts. It was a fight that we've been clamoring for years, man. What are your immediate thoughts, Gio? I got to ask you, man, off the gate.
Man, I feel robbed by PBC, man. That was not Spence, the one we saw in that ring. That's not the Spence we know. He got demolished. I don't know. I'm still a little shook. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, no. For me, obviously, we'll talk about this a little bit later with the whole Terence Crawford calling out Ellie. You know, obviously in this game, we try to stay impartial, but you know we have our favorites. Sometimes you pick one guy over the other, and you know you have yours, I have mine. I picked Bud to win this fight, but man, he surprised even me. He overachieved. He did everything perfect. He was just locked in. And you got to give props to Errol Spence because, you know, he could have folded at any time, and he had a lot of heart, a lot of will. You know, but obviously we expected a much more competitive fight. It came in, the odds were very close. Everybody thought it was going to be a much more competitive fight than expected. But, man, Terence Bud, you know, did that. You know, do you feel – I got to ask you that, do you how much of a shell was Errol Spence from, you know, the guy that we saw go through all these divisions not through the divisions, but through all these fighters at welterweight?
Yeah, like I said, that's not the Spence that we recognize. It's not the Spence that we know. We know he had been through a lot of injuries, stuff, you know, not necessarily related to his fights, injuries related to direct fights, but yeah, I mean, he looked terrible. He looked skinny. He looked weak. He looked slow. Didn't look confident at all. I think he won one round. He looked decent in that first round. Was working behind the jab. After that, he just didn't listen to Derek James at all. I thought Derek was giving him decent instructions, but I think Errol Spence was too far gone. As soon as he got hurt, or dropped in that second round by actually a jab. After that, he just didn't look good at all. You guys see him there on the ground, sitting, looking up. Didn't look like himself. His face looked broken at the end of the fight. Yeah, kind of sad to see. And I was talking to a friend fight week, and I said if Spence loses, I think he either has to retire or take a long break, take 2-3 years off, try to get healthy, but he's 33 years old, so clock is ticking. Not sure we'll see him back in the ring, man. Honestly, he looked terrible.
Yeah, and normally we don't say this, you know, when fighters are in their prime, that they look the shell of themselves, but yeah, and he did. That's exactly what he looked like. As I saw him walk in, obviously, you know, that's me just making my, you know, that's the eye test. I saw him coming a little bit nervous. Like you said, he looked a lot thinner. I expected him to look more imposing physically speaking. I expected him to be the bigger fighter. He looked a little bit smaller than Terence in moments. But again, it was shocking. It was shocking to me for him to get dropped in the second round. That's something that nobody expected. I think even the commentators caught themselves like, oh, that's the first time he falls, and we're not used to that. So I'm like, that's right. That is the first time he gets dropped. That's insane. But a lot of people knew. I mean, a lot of people knew about the car crash, and there was a lot of, how is he going to come in, into this fight against a top fighter? Everybody thought he was going to, be near, 90%, somewhere up there, just based on what he did to, still very top welterweight. So again, it's very, very sad to see from a top fighter. And again, you can't take anything away from Crawford. He treated this fight as if Spence was the Spence of old. So again, you got to commend Crawford for a near, a masterclass, in my opinion.
Told y'all Crawford by stoppage says Mad Dog H coming in hot. And then he also says, I blame Yella Beezy for giving Spence Bambi legs. And actually, I don't know if you saw that clip of Yella Beezy getting at it with a friend of the show, Lalo's Boxing. I don't know if you saw that clip, Chris.
Yeah, I saw that.
That was interesting. And he was upset, obviously, after the fight because his guy lost. Yella Beezy wasn't having none of it. But, I think this result, that is a good reflection of just a shock. On all the polls that we posted, Spence was actually a favorite in all those polls. You even saw the betting odds getting closer, I feel like, as fight night got closer. A lot of people believed in Spence, but honestly, this kind of reminds me of Sergio Martinez against Miguel Cotto, where you saw Martinez in there clearly not healthy, knees not working, and that's the last time I ever placed a bet in a boxing match. After that, I was like, man, you can't believe any of these guys. We thought Martinez was good. We knew he was going to be somewhat injured, but he had no legs underneath him, and pretty much he cashed out, man. And we'll get into that too. I feel like Spence cashed out. I think he knew it. The last big paycheck, of course, he's going to ask for the rematch, try to get another one, but I think this is last big paycheck. We'll get into the pay-per-view numbers. We'll get into that clip of them shaking hands. I know you guys saw the image there on your screens. I just heard the audio today of that, whatever they said to each other before they shook hands after the weigh-in. But we can get into that. As far as the fight itself, as you said, Crawford looked bigger physically. Spence looked skinny, weak, had no legs underneath him. Anything he was getting touched with, he was getting hurt with. Shocking to see. I've never seen Crawford do that to anyone. Not even the guys he was supposed to beat badly. As I said last week, he was out here getting rocked by the Mean Machine in subpar competition. So it was very shocking to see. I feel bad for Spence. The eye didn't look good. They were checking that eye in round 3 or 4. The doctor came in to check him, and they were constantly checking him there in the corner. I don't know. I feel bad for Spence, but I know a lot of people were saying Derek James should have stopped it. I would have let him go, man. I think this is his last chance. Really, that was his last chance, really. He was throwing some haymakers, but really didn't have any power behind his punches. If he's a champion, you got to let him go. And ultimately, referee saw enough. I don't think Spence was too hurt. I think he's taking more punishment from the torn retina, the car accident. But yeah, for sure. I don't know if we see or if I want to see this version of Errol Spence ever step into the ring again.
Yeah, I think what you said is right, Drew. I think there was a moment where now looking back at it, I think Spence kind of cashed out. Previous to them getting into the ring, I think they squared off. They're like, I think Spence said something along the lines like, "Oh, we're gonna make bank."
Yes,
and that's normally you don't hear, like.
All right. Can I read that? Can I read that for you, Chris? Now that you're touching on it, didn't mean to interrupt you, but if I would have seen this beforehand, I would have came out here and said he's losing this fight, because you guys see the image. It's gonna pop up right now on your screen of both of them dapping each other up. This was after the weigh-in. It looked like they were arguing or something, but they ended up dapping each other up, and everyone was like, "Oh, what a great moment! Look at the respect." You see it right there on your screen. Both of them smiling. And I just heard the audio today, Chris. I don't know if you heard the full thing, but Spence kind of leans in and says, "Thank y'all for making this fight." And that's when Crawford kind of leaned in and he said, "What?" And he said, "Oh, I said thank you guys for making this fight." Crawford says, "Nah, you ain't got to thank me. We can thank each other." And then that's when the handshake comes. Crawford says, "We're going to make history, baby." Spence says, "And make bank." Now, that last part is the one that you mentioned. That's telling. And I can play the clip. I think I saved it here. I can play it for you guys. But, man, if I would have heard that, I would have came out here and said Crawford's winning this fight. I didn't like that. Let me see if I have the audio here for you guys. So yeah, not sure if you guys are able to hear it. I know the video is noisy because of the music on the background, but they put subtitles, they put subtitles on it, captions. So you could read their lips and everything. But yeah, Spence tells him thank you for making the fight, but it's saying you don't have to thank me. We can thank each other. Cool, we're gonna make history. And then at the end, that's when Spence throws in and we're gonna make bank. So, whew. That was telling, man. To me, he cashed out. Not sure how much they're making. We can look into the numbers. You guys can help us out, too, in the chat if you want. I saw some articles about the pay-per-view numbers reportedly. But, I don't know if you have the same reaction as me, Chris, like listening to the audio and now knowing what they said to each other before the fight.
I mean, first of all, we know that these guys get into the sport to make money, to change their lives. They're prize fighters, but that's something that they could keep to themselves. When I hear that, I'm like, man, like the other guy crossing me, he's not thinking, he knows he's going to make money, but he's not thinking about the money. He's thinking about, I'm
history,
my will and beat you,
Yeah.
And like you said, Errol Spence was about like, I don't know if he went in thinking like, I don't think I can beat this guy at where, at the state that I'm in. Hey, you know what? Let me just get along with this guy, try to soften them up. And let me just be happy with the millions. Because they made plenty of money. The highest grossing paydays of their careers. Of course, he's going to be thinking of the cup half full. So, but to me, you don't say that, But all cameras are on you. We're going to pick it up. We're going to hear it. Maybe that's why some of the odds weigh towards Terence Crawford's way. But I can guarantee you Terence was not thinking about money like that. He's just thinking about, how am I going to beat you? That's my job, and that's it.
Yeah, and we can go to some comments here right now, but I agree with that 100%. You're going to make the money. This is about me trying to beat you, trying to beat the best. I'm not thanking you. I'm not talking about money. I want to talk about beating you. So I didn't like that by Spence. I wish I would have heard that before the fight. But let's go to some comments real quick. B checking in says Spence was high off them prescription drugs. Mad Dog H says, yes, Spence looks high as fuck. He also adds, that's not the real audio. In the real audio, Spence said, please take it easy on me, and I'm sorry for ducking you all these years. Errol's water was spiked after the first round, says Big Bro. It's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Errol Wilder.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's...
Have you guys ever...
Hey, there's that. Go, Joe.
No, Wesley says, have you guys ever bet on a fight? I used to do online betting. Martinez Cotto was the last one I ever bet on. I bet money on Sergio Martinez. He came out there looking like Spence, looking like Bambi. clearly was hurt, and I felt robbed. So I never placed a bet ever again on boxing. Chris, did
Yeah,
you
I think
still?
yeah, that's the last bet that I did as well. It's been a minute. I think we saw that fight at my place back in Lakewood, and yeah, I felt just the same way. I felt robbed, like dang, like obviously that was our favorite fighter, back in the day, and we felt like he was gonna win this fight. Immediately, we weren't aware of the injury, so yeah, we felt. I think I lost not a whole lot, but $40. Hey, but it's $40 I no longer have with me. But yeah, that's the last time I bet. The other times I bet, I think, was when Mikey was having his fights in the lighter divisions. I made some good money off of Mikey, But yeah, that's the last time I bet. So, Gio, I got to ask you. Obviously, talking about Spence, do you think it was more of the car crash, or do you think it's just him just not making 147 anymore?
Man, that's a good question. I think to me it was more like the accidents and all that stuff. But I think that 15 or 16-month layoff, I think that took its toll. They asked him about it in the post-fight press conference. He said he didn't want to make any excuses. They asked him if it was hard to make weight. He says it's always hard. And obviously he's saying now he wants to fight at 54. But I think it's a combination of everything. I think in this specific one, it was probably the long layoff and obviously having to cut more weight than usual. But I think once he started getting hit, you just saw his face breaking down little by little. And I think that was the beginning of the end. The eye closing, bleeding from the mouth, from the nose, eyes swelling shut. Man, it was crazy. It was crazy to see because I feel like in those first few rounds, he wasn't taking that much punishment. I mean, he got dropped by a jab, not even a power punch. And his face right away started breaking down. But, yeah, I think clearly he can't make 47 anymore.
Yeah. I got to ask, Gio, when did you knew it was over? Because there's people that say, that thing was over when Eminem walked him out. There's other people that say, it was over as soon as I saw him hit the deck in the second round. Was there any moment before that or after that you thought like, oh, you know what, this is done?
Yeah, talking about that, Big Bro says they couldn't make the white savior look bad after coming out and only saying words. Didn't even rap one lyric, he said. Yeah. No, I think to me, honestly, I think after like round 3, I was like, oh man, this shit is done. Because, like I said, Spence got dropped by a jab. Even then, I'm like, oh, it's a flash. You'd probably be fine, probably wake him up a little bit. And then he started looking worse after that. So I think B was saying, too, body language says it all. And every time he was going back to the corner and Derek James was asking him questions and every time Crawford was pushing him back, he would wobble and yeah, I think early on in the fight, it was like, oh, man, he needs a miracle to win this fight. But, yeah, I wouldn't say the white savior played a part in this.
Man. Yeah, now for me, I think after the first round, it was Spence. I was like, okay, here we go, vintage Spence. That first round, I knew he was going to be more active. He's going to be throwing more punches. That second round just kind of, you started just seeing Errol just kind of reaching. And again, we talk back about that size. He did not look like that big Spence that I'm used to seeing. So obviously, not obviously, here comes my comparisons. It reminds me a little bit of when De La Hoya came in with Manny. He just looked, he was not taking those punches that he normally is able to take. He was not taking those, those as well. And again, you got to commend Crawford. He was sharp. He was accurate. He was merciless, but at moments he was kind of merciful because there was moments where I was like, hey, he can end this fight in the 5th, 6th round if he wanted to, but he's taking his time. He's picking his shots. I don't know, Gio, if you noticed. I don't know if you guys noticed. Terence Crawford employed that shoulder roll. And I don't know why I started thinking of Mayweather. I was like, I don't know if this guy was talking to Mayweather. I don't know if Mayweather kind of gave some.
Here we go again with the comparisons.
Hey, that shoulder roll was there. and it was tearing Errol Spence apart. And as we know, Errol Spence, he did some work to Floyd Mayweather in sparring. Everybody, that follows boxing knows that story. But I don't know, man. You got to give Crawford his due. He just looked sensational. And again, we would love to have seen Spence at 100%. We'll never get to see, a true, both these guys at 100%. But you got to commend Bud Crawford for just looking, like the A+ fighter.
Yeah, talking about that, I know a lot of people. I saw some people posting about Crawford and Mayweather and the comparisons. What do you think about that comparison? What do you think about that matchup? We talked last week about, Spence and Crawford have been talking about this as a classic match. Oh, this is going to be Tommy Hearns. This is going to be Hagler. The Four Kings. This is going to be that type of fight. Obviously, we knew it wasn't, right? And we can read the pay-per-view numbers. Even I was disappointed in those. PBC tends to, what's the right word? Inflate their numbers, right? But even then, I think the numbers were very low. We're talking about the different eras, the era of De La Hoya, Tito, Mosley, and how that compares to like this era per se, where it was just these two, and that's essentially it. But you think that's a good comparison, or would you put Crawford in the same sentence as Floyd Mayweather Jr.? Let's say at welterweight, since we're talking about welterweights.
In my opinion, once you take out the other best welterweight, you're allowed to be in that conversation. I mean, it might be a stretch, and we won't know until his career is wrapped up. But I think once you knock off that welterweight, the other one that was the best, I think you can start having those conversations. To me, Terence Bud Crawford is not as skilled as Floyd, but he does possess more power in both hands. Floyd never was the power type of puncher. He was just ultra skilled and very defensively sound. So you can start making those comparisons, but to me, you won't be able to compare until the career of Terence Bud Crawford is over. Having said that, you said like we were expecting obviously they were promising a classic match. It wasn't a classic match, but it was a classic beatdown. This one is going to go down in the history books, the way Maidana beat up Adrian Broner. It's, we have YouTube now. People will look back and like, damn, that was a beatdown. 10, 15, 20 years from now, they're going to say that was a beatdown. It was a clinic. It was not even close. That's what people will remember. And it's sad because we expected it to be competitive. When you get two guys that are pretty close, they don't have to be at the level of Floyd Mayweather. You get guys like Mickey Ward and Arturo Gatti, and you think you could get those kinds of fights, and that was not the case. So, yeah, classic beatdown, in my opinion. It's going to go down like that.
Would you give Crawford a chance against Mayweather at 147?
I would. I think so. I think he's got like that mental dog mentality. A few fighters have it. I feel like Floyd has it. Shane Mosley had it. If Shane Mosley can land those two, I think Terence has. I'm not gonna say that he beats Mayweather, but he's got a shot at hurting him. He's probably a better finisher than Shane Mosley. So I would give him a chance. After this type of performance, you cannot write him off.
Crawford beats Mayweather at welterweight, says Mad Dog H. Big Bro says Steve Kim and Mario Lopez said they would take this Terence Crawford at 35 years old versus Mayweather at 35. And I might agree, but that's as far as I'll go. Terence can't compare with Pretty Boy Floyd and early Money May. Yeah, I don't know. You know how I feel about Terence Crawford's resume. One big win, I don't think puts you in the same category as those top dogs. When people talk about Mayweather, they talk about one of the top boxers ever. I don't think anyone talks about Crawford as that, because he just doesn't have the resume, man. Beating this version of Spence, I don't think that puts him up there, but I do think that's an interesting matchup because styles make fights. And like you said, Mayweather's power almost non-existent at 47. So, yeah, that would be an interesting matchup. Now let's go to the pay-per-view numbers. Chris, I don't know if you read any articles or anyone who was posting, reporting about the alleged pay-per-view numbers for this fight.
No, I didn't see them. I wanted to be surprised, man. How they do? How'd they do?
So reportedly, I clicked on an article. First one that popped up, it said 600,000 to 700,000.
Wow.
Which is pretty bad, right? Just to put that into comparison, Tank Davis versus Ryan Garcia generated 1.2 million pay-per-view buys. Of course, that's according to PBC. You might want to take 600K maybe off of that number, maybe 500K off. But even then, I think that's a top-selling pay-per-view, this number. Spence Crawford, well short of that 100 million mark. I'm sorry, 1 million mark. If indeed those are the numbers, let's say they're a little higher, let's just say 800,000, maybe 750,000. Is this considered a success, or were we right all along saying this fight was long overdue? I mean, we saw it in the ring. We didn't see the best version of both men. So in that sense, obviously, we know it was long overdue. But in the sense of marketing, in the sense of creating that hype, Chris came out here last week. I think you said you were at a 7 or 8 in terms of excitement levels. I was at a 6, maybe 7. I'm not sure if I hit a 7 as far as excitement levels go for this fight. But is that a sign of, hey, this fight was long overdue and people were kind of over it, kind of like Spence B said earlier. Spence was just over it. Were the fans over this fight as well, or what can we attribute that quote unquote low number to?
I think it's a combination of both. I think it was a sell past the due date. I think it was a combination of these guys not being the biggest entertainment outside of that third circle. They're not big trash talkers. They're very respectful. When you have these kinds of fights, you have to also attract the casuals. I think anybody that is a boxing fan paid for it. I paid for it. You paid for it. But when you want big numbers, you also have to attract the casuals, the mainstream media. And I don't think too many mainstream, fans bought into it. And then that's disappointing because it was not a competitive fight, but it was a coming out party in my opinion, for Bud Crawford. So it's a little disappointing. So those numbers are not shocking. I expected them to be a little bit higher, but I'm not surprised. And again, it just shows that you gotta market yourself, more. You can have all the skills in the world. You could be the best fighter, and you're gonna get that belt. You're gonna get all the accolades from the boxing industry, the boxing world. But if you really want, be a household name, you gotta do more. And Floyd is a great example of somebody that's like that. He didn't have the biggest power, not the most entertaining style, but he talked his talk and he got people to tune in to see him lose, and those numbers were high. So yeah, it just, yeah.
Yeah, and let's stay on that because you said it was kind of like a coming out party for Terence Crawford. I mean, one reason why I always criticize him, he's 35 years old, and I think it's a bit unfair, but I'm going to blame him for part of this. I think Spence in the past had showed that, he can sell some pay-per-views. He can fill out some arenas, in Texas and all that. Crawford, on the other hand, I think if a fan who doesn't always watch boxing, if they ask you, who is this guy Crawford? Yeah, you can say, oh, he's skillful. He has power. He fought in this division. He fought in that division. But when it comes to pointing at certain fights, I mean, what fights would you point to? I mean, he doesn't really have big fights. So I think that hurt, obviously the promotion of this fight. And we mentioned Tank Davis against Ryan Garcia. It's hard to point at any fights for those guys as well. But I think when it comes to like the internet and obviously Tank having Mayweather in his corner and Ryan having De La Hoya in his corner. I'm sure that helped a ton to promote the fight. But yeah, I think if Big Bro says he thinks this is a little high, but with people saying, especially boxing fans talking about, oh, we're gonna support this fight, we're gonna buy it. I think that number is fairly low, and I'm disappointed because these guys were talking about a classic fight. Nothing classic about 600K.
Yeah, I'm disappointed in the numbers, but you know what? I'm not disappointed in? Terence Crawford. And I know we brought this narrative of, you set this narrative where, he didn't fight anybody. This just shows that they didn't want to fight him, Gio. He was blackballed. They didn't want anything with him. And I think this kind of shows, you got to give credit to the Meat Machine. You got to give credit to Jose Benavidez. They put up a better fight than did Errol Spence Jr. Of course, it's not the Errol Spence Jr. of, 2018, 2019, but like I said before, nobody told him to go get in his, top of the line car and drive fast and, be responsible. You're a pro. You gotta, walk like a pro and conduct yourself like a pro. So that's not Terence Buds' fault, So again, this only elevates his, his no-name opponents in the past. Again, I've always said Meat Machine is a good fighter. Jose Benavidez once upon a time was very touted, and of course, when you're in there with Terence Bud, you're gonna look.
Don't forget Jeff Horn, Chris. Don't forget Jeff Horn.
Harry and the fight, Gio, and it takes an elite fighter to make you look like that. We saw what Endoway did to Fulton. These guys are elite.
No Jeff Horn, I mentioned.
And Jeff Horn's a big guy. That guy is a full-fledged welterweight.
So let's hold people accountable, right? Who blackballed him?
Who blackballed Terence Crawford?
You said no one wanted to fight him. You said they blackballed him.
The Ghost, Al Heyman, he wanted to keep all his fighters in house. He wanted to keep all that money in house.
And you see, this is where false narratives come from, right? Because didn't he fight an Al Heyman fighter in one of his recent fights?
I mean, just right now, once Terence got out of the contract, he knew that his employer, Bob Arum,
that's why we can't spread false narratives, Chris, because didn't he just fight an Al Heyman fighter? It's a simple yes or no question.
Errol Spence, yeah, he got out of that contract, Gio.
Before that.
Which Al Heyman fighter?
Did he not fight Sean Porter?
Yeah, after he was out of the contract. Sean Porter was the one that made that fight happen.
Look, all I know is Spence collected 3 belts. Crawford beat Horn and didn't fight anyone in the top 10 after that. Does that make sense to you? There wasn't.
I'm not debating that.
Of course, there's Spence. There wasn't 9 other guys he could have fought in the top 10. And you got to state the facts. Don't just state whatever you heard on the internet, Chris.
I'm not debating that Errol Spence has a better resume, the better names. All those welterweights are, under PBC promotions. He does have the better names, but we just seen what Terence Crawford does to, anybody in and around that division. Let me ask you something, Gio. Who can beat Terence Crawford? Who at 154?
Well, you didn't address the point. I was just holding you accountable for saying that people didn't want to fight him and he was being blackballed. But anyway, you're talking about who can beat Crawford at welterweight? No one. There's no one at welterweight. I came out here last week talking about it was one of the weaker divisions at the moment. Look at the version of Spence he just beat. Wasn't even competitive, right? Now 54, obviously you have Charlo. He's probably gonna get destroyed by Canelo. Let's see what he does after that. But I think that's a good fight. At 54, there's really nobody else, right? We thought Castaño was gonna be the next guy. Beat Charlo the first time, got knocked out the second time. There's no one really at 54 either. So, in or around his weight division, yeah, there's not much. So,
okay. So do you give Terence Crawford his respect, his due? Is he the number one welterweight of this era?
The number one welterweight of this era. Yes, he is.
Yeah.
Doesn't say much though.
No, and I agree. It's probably not the strongest, welterweight era, but it's
He beat Jeff Horn. He beat Jeff Horn to win the title. That doesn't tell me much, Chris.
He destroyed Errol Spence. Even even a healthy Errol Spence, gets beat by Terence Bud Crawford.
Well, now this is a different conversation, Chris. You can't just say that because we never saw it. So,
was there did Errol Spence win any second of that fight?
Errol Spence? Yeah, he won the first round. But that's not saying much because Crawford didn't really throw any punches. So,
yeah. Okay. Another question, Gio. On Tuesday of last week, we said that no matter what happens this Saturday, anyway, Canelo's number one spot, number one status. Has anybody's mind changed? Has your mind changed or not?
Hey man, I'm always consistent. When Andy Ruiz beat Anthony Joshua, I still didn't rank him higher than Joshua. I always say that it's not how life works. You can't just skip the line because what happened after that, Joshua came back, beat Andy Ruiz easily, and then people once again flip-flopped and changed their minds, right? So, no, obviously not. I didn't have Crawford top 5, top 6, top 7 pound for pound. I don't think you can just skip 10 spots and go straight to 1. So, yeah, and we mentioned this a little bit in the group chat, because I don't think you give Inoue his credit. You didn't give Fulton his credit either before the fight. But just to put into perspective, Crawford beat the champion at 147, right? 5 years after being in that division.
Yeah, he beat a 3-belt holder of that division, yes.
Inoue went up in weight, beat the champion at 122.
2 belts, okay.
So that answers your question.
Is Fulton Errol Spence, like, respect-wise?
Errol Spence is Errol Spence.
Okay. So you say
use your words, Chris. Use your words.
Terence Crawford is. Where do you rank Terence Crawford pound for pound?
I probably had him like 8, maybe beforehand.
Okay, so now
where do I rank Spence?
Yeah,
I don't think I do. How far do you want to go up the list? I don't know, 20 something. Yeah, I don't think that's crazy. I think people still want to rate him up there, but you got destroyed, you got demolished. And I think my low rating of him now is more so of what I see, or what I think we'll see in his next fights. You just got destroyed. You're 33 years old. You've been through a lot physically. I don't see him coming back. So I didn't really think about his rating after this fight. But, yeah, I wouldn't put him top 20 as of now. This version of Spence doesn't beat Keith Thurman, let me tell you. So that's saying a lot. Keith Thurman hasn't fought in a long time.
Yeah. I agree that this version, well, not this version, the post-Crawford version of Errol Spence is not going to be the same. I think a lot of that damage that Bud put on is gonna linger on. It's concussive. It's gonna carry into other fights, and this is gonna bring me to another point. I know a lot of people are clamoring for a Boots Ennis Terence Crawford fight. Terence is 35, Boots is 26. I think that young man has to stay away from Terence Crawford if he wants to, keep growing in the sport. I think it's too soon in his boxing career to be fighting somebody as fresh as Terence Crawford. Even at 35, he will derail his own career. So, honestly, based on this performance, I know that a Boots Ennis is going to want to jump in and say, hey, I'm going to he will probably do much better than Errol Spence, but he will meet the same fate that Errol Spence, that Sean Porter, that many of Crawford's opponents have faced. So not a good idea in my opinion.
Yeah, and let me tell you the difference between Inoue and Crawford. How many champions has Crawford fought in the last 5 years? I can tell you the answer. I don't even got to look it up.
It's obviously been more, but who's
Hey,
gonna want to face Terence Crawford after what he's done to Sean Porter after what he's done?
It sounds like
to
excuses, Chris. We're talking about facts here. We're not talking about your personal feelings. We're talking about facts. You want me to answer it for you?
Go for it.
I don't got to look it up. Champions.
Look.
Crawford fought Jeff Horn and now Errol Spence, and that's it.
And he's knocked out every single welterweight that he's had in front of him. How impressive is that?
Inoue did the same. You say that, but Inoue did the same thing to what? 14 out of his last 15 opponents going up in weight classes. That cancels out, no? So next argument. Next
no
point.
Disrespect Inoue. He is the monster. He's a beast. And I was one of the ones.
You're about to disrespect him.
Wait. Let me finish. I was one of the ones that said on Tuesday, no matter what happens in this fight, I don't see Inoue losing his position. I don't see him losing that for one spot. But that was because I did not expect Terence Crawford to do what he did to Errol Spence. I thought I was going to go one way, either Errol Spence or the other way to Bud. It was that close in many people's minds, but he completely obliterated Errol Spence. Like, it was a complete destruction, like a masterclass.
Hey, Chris, I'm disappointed, man. This was your episode to come out here, say it with your chest, talk your shit, and you're fumbling the bag, man.
And I don't want to, I'll let Mad Dog jab at you, man. But I don't want to do what Terence did.
Hey.
I don't want to do that to you. Hey, it's an eye test, man. It's the eye test.
There you go, talking about feelings again. I don't care about your feelings, Chris. But let me ask you this. Who would you say is a better champion? Remember the fight we were talking about? I believe his name is Manuel Rodriguez, Puerto Rican, undefeated champion that Inoue beat a couple weight classes ago. Who would you say is a better champion, him or Jeff Horn?
Manuel Rodriguez?
Come on, man. Now you're just bullshitting.
I think I'm going to say Jeff Horn.
All right, next topic.
Rodriguez is a good fighter, but what has he done? Come on now.
What has Jeff Horn done? I dare you to say it. What has Jeff Horn done? I dare you to say it.
Hey, he roughed up Pacquiao. I don't think he won that fight, but he gave him a fight.
Man.
He made the judge think that he won the fight, so he still made it competitive.
That's why you can't argue with personal feelings, Chris.
Oh my goodness, the hate is real. The hate is real.
What did Keith say? Jeff Horn. All right, let's go to some comments here real quick. Chris ain't bringing that same energy from the messages, says B. I know, I'm disappointed, man. This was your night to have a Crawford-like performance, and you're not sounding very, very confident. Let's see. Big Bro says he was elite. He was just never P4P like Disney wanted you to believe. Not with that resume. Now he has a strong case. Mad Dog says Jeff Horn, the legend who beat Manny Pacquiao before Ugas, with the crying emojis. Going back to Ryan against Tank, B says that was the only reason that these guys wanted to make it happen. Man, trendsetters, Tank versus Ryan. Crawford is also fresher at his age, says Big Bro, not having fought many elite fighters. Let's see. Boots the only one, but I don't think anyone at 54 can. It's a weak division. I gave the first round to Crawford, says Mad Dog, just because of the ring walk. It was a 7-10 round. We know it's still number one, says Big Bro. He got Fulton out of there earlier, coming up in weight, and didn't lose a round. You know his resume last couple of years is better after KOing champion after champion, or belt holders, whatever you want to call it. Says Big Bro. B says you're backtracking, Chris. Get out of here, Chris. He's 26. Boots is ready. He can beat Terence, says Big Bro.
Oh my God. Alexis, you bugs, bro.
Chris flip-flopping as usual. More than a pancake on a Sunday morning, he says. Crawford 35 says B. How long should Boots wait then? When would you like to see that fight, Chris?
If I'm Boots' management team, I'm waiting at least 2 years, man. I'm putting on my manager's hat right now. I'm not busting, man. I'm not busting none of these guys that I'm not thinking with just my, the pride. No, dude. Come on, man. Sean Porter's dad stopped that fight because he knew that, his son was going to get hurt more if he continued.
Why, though? Tell us why. See, context is important. Tell us why.
Because he was already hurt. When you're hurt, you're half of the fighter you are. Chris, when you're hurt,
tell us the real reason.
You don't got the same defense. You got an elite fighter in front of you that can finish you and hurt you even more. That's
Chris. We're not talking about feelings. We're talking about what did Kenny Porter say after the fight? Why he stopped it?
Kenny Porter? Oh, because what did he say? That Sean wasn't following the game plan.
All of a sudden, he forgot. He said because he didn't train. He didn't listen to me during training. He didn't listen to me during the fight. So he pulled him out of there. Context is important, Chris.
Heck nah. I would have busted my daddy right there and then. Sean Porter fought a great fight, much better fight than Errol Spence. Man, his dad don't know what he's doing. He knew how to save him, but he just didn't know.
Porter didn't train, and he put them paws on Crawford.
But if I'm Boots' management team, I'm not. Yeah, go fight Cobbs. Shout out to Cobbs, but don't stay away from Terence for at least 2-3 years. That's just me thinking as a manager. Don't do it. Don't do it, Boots. Run, Boots, run.
Damn. Chris put it on his manager's hat. I think Boots needs one big-ish fight, and then I like to see him in there. I think this fight against Villa was a tough fight. Granted, Chin Villa, good power, powerful. I forget his KO ratio, but it was high. It was high up there. That was a dangerous fight, and Boots made it look easy. So I think I'd like to see him against, I want to say elite opposition, but there's really nobody at 147. Especially with Virgil being out now, there's really no one. I don't know what the rankings are, who's up there, who's not, but someone like Josh Taylor is going to have to come up to 47 or something to make it more exciting because, I think guys like Boots just don't have anyone better to fight. It's either fight a guy who's there, C+ type of fighter, or fight a Crawford, and there's a big gap. I think they got to take it step by step. But unfortunately, I just don't think there's anyone right now at 47 to even try to do that for Boots. So but we'll see. I think I'd like to see at least one more year of Boots, take some difficult fights, and then get it on with Crawford. Going back to the comment section here, Mad Dog says Boots is ducking Cobbs. Terence turning 36 this year. You want Boots to fight him at 38, Chris?
And I'm putting on my manager's hat. As a fan, make that fight now.
They're saying Butaev or Stanionis for Boots.
Yeah, no. Boots and Stanionis have to fight. That's a more evenly matched fight. They're both in their 20s. I mean, I think that's a fight to be made, and the winner gets a crack at Terence Crawford. But I'm just if I'm thinking like a manager, I don't put him in there for another 2 years. He is 35. Yeah, his body is getting older, but you wait for it to slow down, just a bit. Like Big Bro said, he's a fresh 35. And like you mentioned, Gio, he probably hasn't fought the opposition that most people expect him to, and that makes him even more dangerous because he doesn't have that wear and tear. You saw his face at the end of this Errol Spence fight. He had no marks on his face and nothing. It seemed like he could fight again that same night. So he didn't take any damage in this fight. So he's very fresh. And again, you're gonna have an A game. I disagree with you, Gio. I think Errol Spence's corner had no answers for for the type of fighter they had in front of them. So yeah, you need the whole team, the whole squad, the whole package, and you might have to bust a Kenny Porter, and if you see that it's not going your way at all, hey, no shame in throwing in that towel against a guy like Terence Crawford.
Loser talk, man. But yeah, hey, going back to the pay-per-view numbers, they're reporting 600 to 700K. That means they probably did like 400K or below, 500,000 knowing PBC. But
yeah,
Tank Davis, Ryan Garcia, 1.2. That's number one right now, 2023. Look, Jake Paul against Nate Diaz is happening this weekend. That's probably I'm sure that's gonna go up there to number two for the year. Canelo's coming up in September. I'm sure that's gonna be up there, top three. So this fight might end up at number 4 or number 5 in 2023 in terms of pay-per-view sold, man. Talk about classic fight. I think those are disappointing numbers, and we got to be disappointed in the boxing community, man. You know, people have been talking about this fight since 4 or 5 years ago. People were hyping up Crawford. People were hyping up Spence. And when it was time to spend money, they didn't. People didn't want to buy this, or not enough people, right? This is a fight when the two top guys in their division, you know, when the fight's been brewing for so long, you would expect it to get close to $1 million. I mean, Canelo's Canelo, but I think his fight against Plant got up to like 800K. That was under PBC, so probably 600K, 500K. But when you talk about two of the top dogs, especially people trying to say Crawford pound for pound, Spence pound for pound, those pay-per-view numbers are not pound for pound, but I think that's the reality of boxing today. And, you know, that's why I never talk bad about guys like Ryan. You know, you can call him whatever you want, a wannabe model, wannabe Instagram, whatever. But the proof is in the pudding, man. You got to put up the numbers.
Speaking of pound for pound, Gio, what's your top 5? 1 to 5.
Oh man, I think we gotta let the dust settle a little bit. Usyk is coming up in August. I don't know. I think right now I'd say Inoue 1. And then I think the next one's in any order really. I think Tyson Fury's gonna slip. He's not fighting a boxer, so he's gonna slip down. Let's see what Usyk does. Canelo. Unfortunately, Beterbiev's fight has been postponed, so that's what I'm saying. I feel like I have to let the dust settle a little bit, because if Beterbiev would have knocked out Callum Smith and made it look easy, you got to stop denying that, man. But I'd say those guys, and then obviously Crawford's going to have a strong case among those names. But yeah, I'm not sure. I think crazy to say, but I think if this would have been a more competitive fight, and if he wins a close fight against Spence, I think I would have given him more credit.
Okay, that's a politically correct answer to say, Gio. I got the holy grail right here, Gio. I got the list right here. This is
copied and pasted from ESPN.
I got number 1, Terence Crawford. Dude, what he did, you know, it was to the kind of fighter that is Errol Spence Jr.
Well,
that puts him at number 1.
Chris put Andy Reese as number 1 in heavyweight when he beat Joshua, so nothing surprises me from Chris.
Number 2, I got the monster Inoue. I mean, that was sensational. You know, to go up in weight and to do that to the champion, you know, to knock out a bigger guy, you know, an undefeated guy, that's amazing. Number 2. Number 3, Alexander Usyk, because he also likes to beat up bigger guys, you know, even when people said that you were too small for that division. And you see him chasing Tyson Fury. I think it's I don't want to say Tyson Fury ducking him, but he doesn't want that fight as much as Usyk. So I got Usyk number 3. Number 4, I still got to show love to Canelo. He's still the most accomplished fighter, active. So he's still number 4. And no shame in losing to a bigger, very talented, bigger guy in Vivo. And for 5th, I got the number 5th spot tied for 2 guys. I got Tyson Fury and Dimitri Bivol. And of course, this is just my opinion. You guys probably have it a little bit different, but I'm comfortable with this one. Of course, like Gio said, things will change come August, just slightly, but I don't see too much of a change. But that's my top 5. What you guys got?
Not that, let me tell you. Mad Dog says it's still top 10 pound for pound. Yeah,
I think it makes a case.
You can't deny him.
Yeah, I think he makes a case. Sure. Josh Taylor hasn't been looking the same, but
he was the man. He controversial, but he beat the man at 35, and then he beat the man at 140. So of course, he has to be. Fugazi P for P says, "Big bro, Chris is typical prisoner of the moment, casual." I mean, I can obliterate your reasoning right now, because look, would you say? And this is why there's levels to this, and I don't think people actually analyze this stuff, or actually people react based off emotions, right? Because who would you say was a tougher opponent? Triple G going up in weight, or Errol Spence, right? Triple G, in his time, a lot of people considered him number 1, number 2, pound for pound. I don't think anyone has considered Spence that, right? But then when you want to go down the list and you want to say first champion at undisputed at 168, taking guys out like Cotto, Lara, whoever you want to name, Callum Smith, Billy Joe Saunders, Caleb Plant, going up to 175, few divisions higher than his. There is really no argument, right? You can't compare Canelo's resume with Crawford's, but hey, it's Crawford's weekend, so people will put him up there.
Yeah, with me, when it comes to Errol Spence, people obviously had him high, and like you said, he's got the resume when it comes to those welterweight names. It almost feels like he just did just a little bit more to win the fight, and it was never like ultra dominant. I mean, he did do it to certain guys like Kell Brook, and he did it, in their hometown. But when he fought guys that were, top 5, top 10, he just did enough to win. Guys like Inoue, guys like Bud Crawford, they're just annihilating people. Canelo going up division, just annihilating bigger guys. That's how you get into those pound for pound mystique spots.
Look, Chris, that's why I say context is important, right? I'm holding you accountable for all your comments, because I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed that you didn't come up here and just talk your shit.
I don't got it. Terence did it for me, and I got it out of my system that same night.
You're making him look bad now. As a Terence Crawford fan, you're making him look bad.
I don't bark.
Errol Spence did it to a prime Kell Brook in England, right? He defeated a prime Sean Porter. He defeated Ugas, which we knew he was going to defeat. He defeated Danny Garcia after the car crash, right? You're trying to put Crawford in the same sentence as Canelo and Inoue, but he's not beating champions. That's the big difference. There's levels to this.
Champions?
I mean, if you want to count Edongo 7 years ago, that's fine. But for the past 5 years, once again, how many champions did it beat in the past 5 years?
Those guys were the title at the time. Just because we don't remember their names, it's more. If we don't remember Dongo's name, we don't remember those guys. It's more or less. It's the way the boxing game is. It's just they don't remember those title holders. But he beat the best guy that was available at that time.
Mm-hmm. And now you're flip flopping, right? Because that's what I was trying to tell you about Inoue. But for some reason, when Inoue did it, not important. When Crawford does it, very important. That's why you got to stay consistent, Chris. You got to stay consistent. Same energy.
I'm not saying I'm not saying it's not important. I'm just saying
It counts for
if, if,
less.
if Terence Bud Crawford is not here right now, Inoue's number one without a share of a doubt. That's all I'm saying. He just in this time where there's a guy like Terence Bud Crawford, putting paws on people. That's it.
So one great win makes you skip the whole line.
The whole line, he's been on that line. Yeah, maybe Disney and ESPN
To them, not to
maybe
the
they
real
all
boxing
them.
fan, Chris.
Come on. So what does Terence Bud
should I
have
read
to
his
do?
resume again?
What does Bud have to do to convince you that he's deserving of that number one spot?
Just beat top guys. That's all you got to do. Just like everyone else, it's not difficult. It's not difficult to come to that conclusion. You just got to beat top guys. Now you're up there, because before Spence was beating top guys, I was giving him the same criticism. Started beating the champions, started facing difficult opponents. Boom, you're up there. Same with Keith Thurman. You know,
Hey, let's leave Keith Thurman out of this. He's got Clarissa Shield problem right now.
Keith Thurman actually sent a shout out to Spence and saying we're gonna pray for him and this and that, because even he seemed a little shocked. But yeah, all you got to do is beat top guys, Chris. For my criteria, at least, I think it's common sense, right? In any sport, you got to beat the top teams to be up there, right? For some reason in boxing, if you play against the Detroit Pistons and you beat them every night, that makes you great.
All right, so you want to see him against Thurman, against all these dudes that Errol Spence beat?
What was that? Do I want to see him against the guys that Errol beat?
Yeah.
Chris, those guys haven't fought in 5 years, just like Kell Brook. What are you talking about?
I mean, I'm not saying Kell Brook, but I'm saying like the guys are still kind of active. Keith Thurman says he's coming back, so you want to see, obviously.
When was the last time Keith Thurman fought?
Hey, he's saying he's coming back. I'm not. So let's not talk about Clarissa right now. But Keith Thurman says he's coming back. Do you not expect Terence Crawford to do the same thing to him that he just did to Errol Spence?
Who?
Do you
Keith
think
Thurman?
that Keith is going to be competitive?
Chris, I'm telling you, Keith Thurman hasn't fought in forever. What makes you think he's still relevant at 147?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Again, you just said that nobody beats Terence Bud Crawford, so I mean, it's just a matter of time before he beats whoever is available.
Chris, there's no one out there. There's maybe Boots. To me, he has I think close to 30 fights, but hasn't really faced any of the top dogs. Are there any more top dogs? Sean Porter retired. Danny Garcia's fighting for a middleweight title.
To me, I'm trying to find names that would convince you that he is deserving of that number one spot if he hasn't already, which he hasn't.
Big Bro says Charlo 154. He can become 3 times undisputed, greater than Ali, Tyson, and Mayweather put together. Hey man, that top ranked machine got him good, man. That top ranked machine. He beat a bunch of nobodies at 40. He beat Jeff Horn at 47. This version of Spence, 2-time undisputed. If he beats a Canelo's ragdoll at 54, he can become 3 times undisputed.
Okay, so let me ask you something, Gio. If he beats somebody at 154, like like Charlo, like Jermel, and then he beats a guy like Tenzu, will you finally have him at number one, or he just?
Well, I mean, Chris, you got to look at what everyone else does too. It's not about one person. It's taking everything into account. So if he goes out there and beats those guys, yeah, he has a strong case. But if Tyson Fury knocks out Usyk, then what? If Inoue goes to 26, knocks out Robesi, knocks out El Venado, knocks out, I don't know, Lee Wood is fighting Warrington now. They just announced that fight. If Inoue goes up in weight and knocks the other champions out, then, you got to take that into consideration too.
Okay, no, yeah, for sure. Of course, it's based on what you do and then what other guys do, of course. But for you, for Gio Garcia against the ropes, Terence still has more to do to convince you. Plain and simple.
I think that's a fact.
Okay. All right, Terence, you heard it.
How about this? Look, because people think I'm a hater, but name his top 5 best wins in his career.
No, you're right. Like, he doesn't have all the names that other people do.
That's all you got to do. That's all you got to do.
Yeah, no, I get it. He doesn't have all the names, but you got to give him credit for being the guy that beat those guys. Yeah, you didn't get in that square circle with that guy's opponents, but if you're good enough to beat this guy who beat these people, then come on, it's almost a no-brainer. You know he's going to beat those dudes.
Guess what, Chris? Liverpool beat Manchester City last season. I don't consider them the champions.
This is boxing. This is one-on-one. You know, soccer, football, there's 11 guys. There's more variables. That's all I'm saying.
Well, that Chris logic, let me tell you. All right, final.
Hey, I welcome this though. You know, I welcome this because it's like guys like Terence Crawford. Once they clean up their divisions, they need new challenges. We've seen Loma go up. He needed to challenge himself. So I can see Crawford, you know, moving up to 154, and he's gonna have to fight guys like Charlo and Sue. Those guys are big. Those guys can take a punch. And they might not have the same skill set as Terence Crawford, but they're gonna be able to land something. You know, they're gonna be more dangerous than Errol Spence and anybody else that Terence Crawford has faced thus far, in my opinion.
And that's why I don't like the argument of, oh, he's undefeated. Well, he's beating whoever's in front of him. Look, he has all the belts now. Okay, well, other guys are doing something similar and taking a much tougher route. You know, Canelo loses to a bigger man in Bivol, and people want to crucify him for it. You know, Lomachenko loses to bigger guys, and people want to crucify him for it. If Lomachenko stayed at 126, no one's beating him. If Canelo stayed at 160, no one's beating him, right? They challenge themselves. It's like the equivalent of, to me, Crawford going up to 160 and fighting, let's say, a guy like Janibek. And then we find out, Janibek is just too big for him. You know, I wouldn't hold that against Crawford. I would say, hey, man, look, what do they always say? Oh, he dared to be great. He went up 2 weight divisions. The guy was just too big for him. You know, that doesn't take away from his skill or from his career or his resume or who he is, you know. But for some reason, you know, the guys who are moving up pound for pound and fighting bigger guys, you know, they get punished for it when I feel like they should be celebrated. But, hey, there's no common sense in boxing, man. It's all about what have you done for me lately, and Crawford defeated Spence this past weekend, and that's why people are saying what they're saying about him. But we'll see. It's going to be interesting in the next year or two where Crawford's career goes, because to me, without doing much, people were already considering him top pound for pound. With this, of course, more so. But I think it's going to be interesting to see where he takes it from here. He's not a guy who's accustomed to giving us, you know, good fights against good opponents, so it's rare. The last time he had one was Postal, like 6 years ago. Now Spence, so we'll see where he takes it from here. Historically, it tells us he's going to fight another Eastern European next or something like that, but we'll see. It's going to be interesting.
All right, Judah, and since we're talking about 154, I'm gonna ask you to put on your manager's hat. First of all, first question is, can Errol come back? And if so, what road do you take for him at 154?
Wait, sorry, I got distracted because one of the comments says, B says, Chris is the type to brag about beating a guy with a broken arm.
Okay, just don't get distracted with these casuals. We're having a good conversation right now. All right, so I'm going to ask you, since we're talking about 154, first of all, first question is, can Errol Spence come back after a performance like this?
No.
And who do you put him against at 154?
Is Jeff Horn at 154? I'd put him against Jeff Horn if he's up there, man. No, man, look, I think what made it so intriguing watching Errol Spence is, you know, are the injuries going to catch up to him? You know, watching him against Danny Garcia, to me, honestly, that's probably his toughest win to me, just because of the circumstances, fighting in front of his hometown crowd, coming back from the injuries, fighting against a power puncher. I thought he could have got hurt in that fight if he wasn't healthy. Now we know he wasn't really healthy, but he still kind of pulled it off. But those two fights, Ugas, we knew he was going to be Ugas. You know how I feel about Ugas, but I think the Danny fight was tough. But I think that's it for him, honestly. As I stated, you know, last week I said if he loses, he should retire or take a few years off. It's going to be tough at 33, so I don't see him coming back. I don't want to see him fight again. He was getting touched and he was getting bruised in this fight. Every punch was hurting him. Every punch, it seemed like, was breaking his face. He doesn't look good. He doesn't look right. I wouldn't like to see him fight again, especially if it's going to be this version. You want to see the top dogs, you know, going out on top, you can say, and not going out like guys like El Terrible Morales getting knocked out by Danny Garcia and having those sad moments. So, yeah, I wouldn't like to see Spence fight again, honestly. He cashed out. He made a lot of money.
Damn. That's tough.
Would you like to see him fight again, and who? If it's not Jeff Horn, I don't want to see him fight.
Yeah, for me, the 154-pound division, that weight class, I agree. I think it's not the strongest. I think there's many guys that I would favor Spence in there against, but again, his mindset, his mental state has to be, you know, near 100%. I don't know how he's going to respond to this. I think they asked him the question: are you somebody to dwell too much on this loss, or are you somebody to have short-term memory and like put it behind you? I think he answered with the latter. He said that, like, I'm not going to dwell on this. I'm going to forget. Like, but it's easier said than done. Like, all eyes were on you. The whole boxing world, you know, saw everything. They saw the destruction. They know your history. Like, they know, you know, I don't know if he's able to, I don't know if he's going to be able to overcome it. You know, that's something that Errol Spence Jr. is going to have to, you know, prove to himself and prove to the boxing world. Does he have the skills and the volume punching to come back? I think he does. And I think he's going to be, you know, obviously much stronger and much more comfortable at 154. You know, I think of, I know you're not a fan of Cotto, but I think of somebody like Miguel Cotto, who was just feeling himself more at 154. You know, he was just feeling stronger, feeling, you know, as you get older in your 30s, you know, you can't take that weight off as easily as you did in your early 20s, in your mid 20s. So I do believe Errol Spence can come back, but it's got to be right in the mindset. And so that's one of the things that I said. I don't think he's the most disciplined fighter. He's a very, very, very talented fighter, but that discipline has to come and carry over in the 30s. And like you said, Gio, he made a lot of money. That money can make you comfortable. So who knows? We'll see.
I don't know. I strongly disagree with him not being a disciplined fighter. You don't just happen to throw 90 punches per round without being disciplined. I mean, who does that? I think he's unique in that sense. No one has his stamina. But honestly speaking, seriously speaking, I think a guy like Jarrett Hurd, maybe. Not too much power. No. He's going to come to fight. Big if, for me, if I wanted to see Spence at 54, maybe a guy like that. I think his last fight, Hurd, he fought, I believe it was at 160 and he lost. So maybe a guy like that. I don't know. But yeah, I wouldn't like to see Spence again, honestly. I think he did great in boxing. He was a welterweight champion for a long time. Got some good, tough wins. Made a lot of money. I don't think he has any more to prove. I honestly didn't know he was in the hospital for so long after that last accident when he was talking about it in these podcasts. And then going back to the marketing part, you know, these guys were doing a lot of interviews. They were going to podcasts, the Breakfast Club, this podcast over here, this podcast over there. So they got a lot of good promotion. So I feel like this should have done more than 1 million pay-per-views. Seems like it didn't, but going back to Spence and his health, I didn't know he was in the hospital for that long, and that Al Heyman was visiting him, and they pretty much thought he wasn't going to be able to fight again. But look, he did well against Danny, did well against Ugas. Crawford was too much for him. That's all I got on this fight, Chris. Honestly, I think we can discuss the undercard a little bit and then the calendar that's coming up. But I'll give you the last and final words. It's your podcast, Chris. It's your week. Your boy won.
No, it's Terrence Bud's podcast, man. He did his thing. He proved out that he is one of the very best of this era. But just last comments, dude. We're just. I want to say that I'm happy that these guys finally got in. Yes, a couple of years late, a couple of years removed. Not the same hype that it should have gotten if they made this fight in 2018, 2019. But hey, man, it's been a banner year for boxing, and we could go down the list of all the fights that we've gotten. I messaged you earlier, like, you're lucky if you get 2 of these fights in a year. And we've gone about 5, 6, 7 of these fights, and we're only halfway, a little bit over halfway through the year. So, again, I commend these 2 guys for getting in the ring, making this fight happen. Shout out to Errol Spence. Clearly he wasn't, 100%, but he got in there and he fought this fight, and he was probably motivated by the Ryan Garcias and the Tanks to make these fights for the fans. And maybe he knows that curtain is closed on his career. He is 33, so he wanted to make this fight, and he gave a good account of himself, even though he came up extremely short. But shout out to Terence Crawford. He is a pound for pound king of this era. I think there's still many fights left for him to do, and I think he's gonna have to go to 154 and conquer other notable names. So shout out to these 2 guys for getting in the ring.
B says Crawford was using them Spence tranquilizers on them. The horse tranquilizers. Big Bro says he's good. He's old school. He just hangs out at his farm. Stays off social media. He'll be all right. Especially now that fans have short-term memory. They move on quickly. And you mentioned if he's right mentally. I think he's always been right mentally. I think that's his fortitude. I think physically that betrayed him. Like I said, every punch he took just made him bleed or made him bruise up. But let's go to some last comments here regarding this fight, and then we can go to the undercard. Big Bro says anything is possible. And he says undercard don't deserve no shine. Just give props to Nonito, a legend. He's just set off into the sunset, he says. Big Bro. Valiant Thor says, let's see. Keep talking. Errol's about to level up with a Neuralink implant, boosting his boxing IQ to the stratosphere and landing him a Tesla sponsorship. Get ready for the ultimate comeback plan.
That's funny.
Interesting. All right. Let's speak a little bit on the undercard. Obviously, Nonito Donaire was on that undercard, was defeated. Honestly, I almost fell asleep. With all due disrespect, I had the undercard fights just on the background.
Yeah, not much to say about that. Obviously, we know Nonito has had a legendary career. I expected him to win, but in the back of my head, back of my mind, I was telling my boy Javi, who I saw this fight with, I was like, hey, Nonito is 40. I was like, at any time he can get old overnight. And I don't want to say that he got old overnight, but he just didn't have the same quickness, the same reflexes. The younger fighter who didn't pose much punch power, was just beating him to the punch, and he did just enough to win. So I know that some of the boxing interviewers were kind of thanking Nonito for a great career. I know Nonito was a little bit hesitant, like, hey, it's not over yet, but again, he's had a legendary career, 40. I don't want to get canceled, but I mean, it's okay to have your spouse and have all that, but hey, that wouldn't be my first choice as a coach. With all due respect, you don't play boxing. It's not a game. But again, shout out to his opponent for having heart, man. I like seeing those post-fight interviews. You just see the humbleness in his opponent, and yeah, again, Nonitos has had a great career, and it seems like it's getting close to that time.
Anytime Chris says no disrespect, he's about to disrespect the shit out of you. Just a heads up. But yeah, he lost to Alejandro Santiago, who was coming into the fight at 27-3. Unanimous decision. He just got outboxed. Ate the jab all night. Landed some good hooks, but Santiago took him well. Wasn't enough for Nonito. And, of course, your other boy was also on the other card, and it was even worse. Even a worse fight, man. I come out here every time I hear Chris mention his name, and not a big fan of his. I don't see where the hype is coming from. And just when I was ready to give him a chance and say, hey, man, he's fighting an undefeated fighter. He has a good chance to knock him out. The other guy doesn't have much power. Usyk Cruz was 25-2 now, 17 knockouts. He was going up against Giovanni Cabrera, who was 21-0. Let's check his knockouts. Just seven knockouts. So I thought he could have got him out of there. Split decision at the end of the day. Very boring. I'm trying not to fall asleep right now. Chris, your thoughts?
Yeah, I was a little disappointed in Cruz. Obviously, we know that he had an undefeated opponent in front of him. Very awkward style. He had that height and reach advantage on him. But as highly touted as Usyk Cruz is, you expected him to do more. His little T-Rex hands just didn't help him out. He was not cutting off the ring the way you would expect someone that's contending for a title to. Props to his opponent for making it, again, a weird, awkward type of fight. He took a bunch of Usyk Cruz's punches pretty well. I'm surprised he took them and stood, didn't fall to the canvas. But again, it was a disappointing performance for Usyk Cruz. As touted as he is, as fight friendly as he is, I expected more.
That's it, Chris, man. You're not gonna grill him. All right, we'll move on, man. I'm done with Cruz.
Hey, Styles makes fights. He needs a guy that's in front of him, and
Wow.
I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed.
Hey, all right, then we'll just watch him during training punching the heavy bag then, if that's gonna be it. Oh man, unbelievable. I think Ryan would have knocked him out, honestly, the way he fought. I know Ryan called him out. Surprise, surprise, right? Always tweeting. But yeah.
Ryan's like
I'm done. I'm done with Usyk Cruz. Done with him. Shout out to Valiant Thor. It says like and subscribe. Shout out to you. All right, let's see. I want Queen Rice, says Big Bro, to knock out Cruz and make him go away. Well, most likely they're gonna give him the rematch against Tank for an easy tune-up after his jail time. True.
Damn.
If the other dude boxed better, he would have won, says B. He needed one more round. He needed one more round to win.
Didn't he knock out, what's his name?
Cabrera?
Yeah.
Who did he knock out? Let me look it up right now. I forgot.
That Olympian, the one that Venado also knocked out.
Gabriel Flores Jr. I'm not sure that he knocked him out, but I know he defeated him. I don't remember.
That's right. He dropped 7 seconds there.
It's coming back now. Yep.
Yeah, so I was looking forward to seeing how good this guy was. He had an awkward style. I thought he was a little bit better than what I thought, but yeah, again, disappointing performance for Vegeta, Usyk Cruz, so
yeah,
we're gotta make it up, man.
We're looking forward to this undercard too, and disappointed, but that's that on that event. Reportedly 600 to 700K, probably much lower than that when it comes to pay-per-view numbers, PBC. But let's move on, because August, we still have a lot of action coming up, Chris. We still have a lot of action. It's summer, it's hot, and we got I'm not even going to mention I don't want to mention the fight this weekend. I didn't even know it was this weekend. But the Jake Paul, Nate Diaz fight is this weekend. Our boy Ashton Silva is on the undercard, and Amanda Serrano is also on the undercard. So I believe that's pay-per-view, right? The Zone pay-per-view. So we'll see. We'll find a way to watch it. But of course, you guys see some more action there on your screen. Anthony Joshua, Dillian Whyte, the rematch. Last time they fought was, 7 years ago, I believe. That was a while ago. That's going down England, same day as, right there on your screen, Vaquero Navarrete against Oscar Valdez. That's going down in Texas, ESPN. As I mentioned before, Beterbiev and Callum Smith postponed due to a jawbone infection on Beterbiev's end. So we'll see when that fight can happen again. I was excited for that one. Callum Smith looking good at 75. Obviously, Beterbiev, 100% KO ratio. Would have been another good name for him, but unfortunately, that's been postponed. And, of course, Usyk as well. You see Usyk on your screen toward the end of the month. So good heavyweight action. But, yeah, the next one up, August 12th, of course, Navarrete and Valdez. That should be a war. I don't see that fight playing out any other way. They're going to go toe-to-toe, Chris.
Yeah, Navarrete Valdez, expect fireworks. I don't see this being a boxing match. It might start off as one. They might try to, play a little bit checker/chess, but eventually a fight's going to break out. And, I think these guys want to have their names etched in history when it comes to, memorable fights. So, shout out to both of them for making it happen. They've been talking about, wanting to fight each other. And so, I'm excited for this one. Arizona, it's going to get loud. A big Mexican American population there, so it's gonna be a great fight.
Yeah, is it Arizona? Did I say Texas on accident? Here, let me see what the thing says. Yeah, Glendale, Arizona. Sorry, Glendale, Arizona. What's crazy though, because they talk a lot about Barrera, they talk a lot about Morales. They actually had our boy Venado Lopez recently on their podcast too. I was watching some of the clips yesterday, so shout out to them for having them on. They talk about these fights. Obviously, those guys fought more than once. It seems like these guys want to fight more than once, right? And I'm very torn with my prediction because I don't know who's going to win the first one. I'm pretty sure they'll fight again, but this first fight between Navarrete and Valdez, I haven't made up my mind yet. But we got time. We got 10 days. We got 10 days. To think about it and name our prediction live on the podcast. I was definitely wrong last week. I chose Errol Spence, got demolished. So I'm going to take my time with this one, man.
Are you still going to wear that shirt? Like you promised, which promise? You promised Bad Dog?
Hey, I wanted to wear it. I can wear it next week if you guys want. I just didn't have time. I've remembered about it like an hour before the podcast. So I was like, damn. What I was going to do is I'll just do it next week. I'll do it next week. Yeah, I don't mind.
It's promised. Shirt is being worn. You got a pink shirt too?
I'll buy one. Navarrete got that Shakur game plan, says B. Got the blueprint. Shakur, who I don't know if it's true, but they're saying that Loma Shakur was mandated or whatnot. I don't know if you heard about that or not. I'm not sure if that's true, if that was just someone posting stuff on Instagram. But I know Haney, Regis Prograis was announced October 28, Las Vegas, for that WBC strap. 140. Regis did not look good last fight. Looked a little sluggish, flat-footed.
Yeah, that announcement surprised me a little bit. I'm not mad at it. It's a good little scrap. I let the guys know the thing that most intrigues me about that is the movement that's going to allow Lomachenko and Shakur Stevenson to try to put a fight together. Obviously, we know Lomachenko wants that rematch against Devin Haney, but if he's busy, then he's going to have to go find the next best thing available in and around that division. And, there's no better name than Shakur Stevenson. People always talk highly of his boxing skills, his defense, and this kid is everywhere. He's at everybody's fights. He's showing up. He's calling out. He's getting in the ring. He believes in himself. So who better than somebody like a Lomachenko to welcome him to those levels? So I would take my money now if those guys get it on.
Mhm.
That's gonna be an ultra chess match if they're able to sign, and it's possible because they're both obviously there with under Bob Arum. So yeah, man, I would love to see that fight, Gio.
100%. And Big Bro says Vaquero KO, but he's vulnerable to get caught by one of those hooks and get dropped. And yeah, I was gonna come out here, and of course Oscar Valdez had that crazy KO against Berchelt. To me, when I saw Spence getting demolished like that, that reminded me of that fight. Valdez,
I was gonna take that.
as this physically smaller man, a lot of people thought he wasn't gonna get it done. Berchelt, powerful, big, strong, volume puncher. After the first knockdown, it was essentially over, and that reminded me of that beatdown that you guys see there on your screen. But yeah, I think Valdez always a dangerous puncher. I think he's become a better counter puncher under Reynoso. Somewhat of a smarter fighter, at least. They go into a fight well prepared when it comes to a game plan. It's not just him going out there and trying to figure it out as he goes. So it's an intriguing matchup, man. And Navarrete, I forget who's in his corner, but I wasn't too impressed last time out. Intriguing matchup, man. I'm still debating in my head. But B says, Gio's a man of his word. Chris, pay attention. Hey, I'm going to pay up. I'm going to wear the shirt.
Yeah, and we don't bet often, but Brian Dominguez owes me $15, so para las chelas, compa. But yeah, no, again, like this fight kind of snuck up on me, Gio. Valdez on Navarrete. It's already 10 days. Of course, all the attention was on Errol Spence Jr. and Terence Crawford. But yeah, dude, you beat me to the punch. I'll give you one round. That the way Errol Spence got demolished. It also reminded me of how Berchelt got taken out, and I think that's the reason why you say, like, yeah, we don't want to see him back. It's evident. We've seen it before. We've seen this tape before. We've seen what happened with Berchelt. They just don't come back the same when they get beat like that. And I think a little bit of Melter Taylor, like a special fighter, the way he just got broken down by Chavez Sr. You just don't come back the same. So I hear you. I see it. Again, hope this is where your manager's decision making is very important. Obviously, as a fighter, you want to fight the best. You want to bounce back as soon as possible against named fighters, but you kind of have to let these people guide you. And so if Errol Spence were to take a 2-0 type of fight, as a boxing fan, some people might not like it, but as someone that thinks with their brain, I wouldn't be against it. I would actually think that's a smart move. So again, this is your life, this is your health. You gotta make these right decisions if you want to bounce back.
Yeah, I'm bringing it back full circle. Berchelt went up in weight, stopped by Nakatila, right? Yeah. Our boy, speaking about Nakatila, who got demolished by our boy Raymond. Raymond's supposed to be on that undercard as well. That undercard, I believe, of Valdez and Navarrete. So look out for him. His brother Gabriel Murataya. El Maestro is also supposed to fight, I believe, is this Friday on the Zone. So looking forward to that. I got to check if my DAZN account is still active or not. But yeah, a lot of good action, man. A lot of good action. And they just, as I mentioned earlier, they just announced Lee Wood against Josh Headbutt Warrington October 7th in Sheffield. So Warrington's still getting these title shots. 126 still active. That should be interesting. An all-out British war.
Hey, they gotta sell out, man. They gotta make their money. It's a business. So yeah, like you said, Warrington's still getting those shots. He is a name, so figured, against Fleetwood, they can probably sell out that arena. But yeah, Gio, I don't got too much, man. Again, I called this the pound for pound week. Obviously, man, it feels longer than a week.
Oh yeah.
It feels longer than a week. So much stuff went down with Inoue just destroying Fulton, and then Bud Crawford doing what he did to Errol Spence Jr. But yeah, man, it's been a great couple months of boxing. We're never this lucky, so I'm trying to soak it all in and enjoy every second of it. But yeah, man, August is gonna heat up as well. So man, can't wait to see what else boxing has in store for us, man. But as for me, man, that's all I got.
Last question for you and for the people still listening. Would you like to see a rematch at 154?
I'd like to see a rematch. Right now, immediately, the quick answer is no, immediately speaking. But if somehow Errol Spence is able to look sensational the next 12 months, and if he looks strong and big and comfortable, then I would probably welcome that. But if he doesn't, if there's any crack in his armor at all, yeah, I think you're right. I think you should take over his career and be his manager, because you see what's best for him. And sometimes the best option is walking away from the sport. So if he doesn't look sensational in the next 12 months, yeah, I don't see me wanting to see that rematch.
Yeah, and I just don't think we've ever seen someone get destroyed like that and come back and beat that same opponent. This is a terrible example, but really, though, I'm trying to think. We watched many, many fights. The only one I can think of is Povetkin and Dillian Whyte.
Yeah.
Povetkin knocked out Whyte in the first one. Whyte came back, did it to him in the second one, but we're talking about heavyweights. So, I mean, terrible example, I think, because they're not on that level, obviously, but I just can't think of anyone else off the top. I don't know if you can.
Yeah, I was gonna say, who can you think of off the top of your head? Someone that had just, such great momentum. When it comes to winning, when it comes to being on that W column, and just get thrown from grace like this. The first one that comes to mind that I can think of is Teofimo, but he didn't get destroyed like that. He just got knocked down. He just got thoroughly outboxed, outbeat. But he didn't take a hellacious beating. So I was wondering who's somebody that comes to mind that was just like on that winning column and then just boom, got destroyed.
Anthony Joshua.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Anthony Joshua.
Good one. Yeah, because he was. I mean, Andy gave him his first loss and knocked him down 3-4 times. Yeah. Look at you, Gio, coming through with those carbon copies.
I had to show up, man. I had to show up for this podcast. I was wrong about everything I said, so I had to make up for it.
Obviously, there's no shame in that, because obviously we know something about boxing, but we don't know it all. And these are the moments where like, hey, boxing surprises you, and this is why we love boxing. Because if everything was predictable, it'd be boring. So just the fact that these kinds of things happen, yeah, it sucks and it's humbling, but it's like also like, dang, didn't expect that, But yeah, I can't. I'm trying to think of another. I'm thinking of a time that I've been wrong, and I know people are gonna be like, I can't believe you picked this guy, but hey, I picked Ringing now to be Loma back once upon a time. Boy, was I wrong.
I remember that.
I think I tried to just be the underdog and be the odd man out. But yeah, there's been some calls. No shame in that.
Oh, my worst one was Mikey against Spence.
Oh, you had Mikey?
Yeah. More so for entertainment purposes, but I remember picking Mikey to win that fight.
I think Mikey saw what Terence saw, but Terence was able to execute.
He saw the same thing. This was
to Mikey,
pre-accident.
To his defense, Errol was still 100%. And again, we not to excuse Errol, but like again, these are human beings. Being in a car accident, no joke. It is no joke. He's lucky to be alive in a sense, and for him to come back and still lace up, and that's a feat in itself. So
Yeah, and people forget that torn retina too. Abner Mares was talking about it on air, but even that one is serious. Abner Mares never came back from that. He still wears shades to this day.
Yeah, so it's tough. It's tough.
Errol versus Castaño rematch, says Big Bro. Castaño's a small 154. It's not a bad matchup.
If you're Errol Spence Jr., do you sit him out for the rest of the year, Joe? Do you just
1,000%. 1,000%. Go get healthy, man. Go get healthy, man. Look, I'm shocked that he was talking about, his mouth guard not fitting and not being able to bite down his mouth guard against Ugas, and talking about his teeth and stuff like that. Because I don't think he had revealed a lot of details beforehand, but yeah, well, once you hear that, it's just like, man, this guy should have been resting instead of, coming back so quickly. I think if he would have probably rested and not taken those fights, who knows? Maybe he would have had a better chance. But I think I give him more credit for defeating Ugas and Danny now, after seeing him get demolished like that. But yeah, we'll see, man. We'll see. I think sucks to say, but maybe another year or two, take another long break, which I'm sure might not even help much. But yeah, we'll see, man. You guys see it there on your screen. Crawford demolishing Errol Spence. Huge month for boxing. You mentioned the fights. We'll be leaving shortly, but you mentioned the fights, the Lomachenko-Haney, the Benavides Plant. If you can help me out here too. Tank against Ryan. We get this fight. We got Noah Fulton. I'm not sure if you see any of the other ones there, but we still got, 4 more months to go. So let's continue. Let's keep it going.
Yeah, no, like you say, you pretty much named them all, dude. Like, these are fights that are just, man, like they were great, and this is a high risk, like this is a high risk, high reward kind of fights, and sometimes you come up short. But if you do get that W, you're up in people's psyches on it. For me, this is the biggest push that Terence Crawford could have gotten, outside of somebody like Manny Pacquiao, who, for whatever reason, these guys never got in it with the legend Manny Pacquiao. But this is the biggest push Terence Crawford is going to get. And, I'm sure more people will tune in for his fights, now that they know who Terence Crawford is. So once again, congratulations to Bud Crawford. Errol Spence, no shame in that, man. Take 6 months, take 8 months, take a year, go hang out with your horse, with your family, and like Gio says, man, just recover. Even if we're not sure if that's a possibility, but you need that time. So again, great fight, overall great event. Eminem came out, all the stars that follow boxing came out. So again, it's a memorable event.
Canelo's next, says Big Bro. And then Brian says, you got your money. He says he has her 15. It could have been 50, he says.
I didn't want to take your money, Brian. Hey, I'm not going to lie. I was a little nervous at first, man. I didn't want to lose 150, I was like, si pierdo unos 65, no pasa nada.
Hey, man, I was so close to taking that bet, too. Man, I wouldn't even bet for a piece of gum after that. My last bet was Martinez, Cotto, and then this. If I would have bet on this one, oh man.
Yeah, no, I wasn't completely confident. People that came into this fight knew that they expected it to be close. So I want to sound like a genius because I'm not, but it just shows who Bud is.
Oops. Last comment here. Big Bro says they're saying AJ Wilder at the end of the year. Says this fight will be bigger than this past weekend's. That's still a big fight. Crazy.
Yeah.
And you mentioned Pacquiao. Pacquiao made a little bit of a comeback. He got some big wins at the end there. AB, Keith. I think that was impressive for his age. 40 plus, being able to win those fights. But yeah. Well,
I was gonna ask you if you can make one fight, if you could guarantee one fight for the remainder of the year, what fight would it be?
Look, I think everyone. Oh man, this one's tough because I was gonna say Fury, Usyk, but I'm gonna go with Bebo Beterbiev, man. The whole Fury fighting an MMA guy, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of that. But yeah. If Beterbiev stops Callum Smith and fights Bebo next, oh man, that's the biggest fight in boxing.
That would come off a freaking year.
Not numbers wise, but boxing wise. But yeah. What about yourself? I don't know. We might be sleeping on someone.
Trying to think. If we could get Shakur Loma, yeah, it's possible because they don't have a fight set. If that happens, man, even if Loma loses, man, I would give him fight of the year just to fight these two guys in a calendar year.
The only reason I don't want to fight Shakur is because there's a good possibility of him taking 2 L's in a row. And as I was saying earlier, man, boxing's unfair. There's these guys who are fighting top dogs, and if he takes that other L, people are gonna say, "Oh, he was overrated this whole time. He's not one of the best fighters of this era." But yeah, that's the only reason I wouldn't want to see it. Because Shakur, I think, is even better than Devin Haney. But yeah, styles make fights, so you never know until they get it on.
Yeah. All right, Gio, let's get out of here, bro.
Let's
go. 2 hours in.
Let's do it. Let's go. Thank you guys for keeping that chat lit. We'll be back soon. Not much going on this weekend besides Jake Paul. Now, I'm not watching that fight. I do hope he knocks out MMA guy, though, just because boxing stays taking W's against those guys. Don't make us look bad, Jake. Shout out to our boy Ashton, who's going to be on that card. Shout out to the boy Gabriel Morataya, who's fighting on Friday on the Zone. Yeah, we'll be back soon, man. We'll be back soon. Thank you, guys.
Peace.
Let's go, mate. Shout out to Omaha. I know you're listening. Peace, mates.
Michael, you already know I'm a fun guy.
Hola amigos, soy Juan Francisco Gallo Estrada. Quiero mandar un saludo para mis amigos de Contra las Cuerdas. Échenle muchas ganas. Un abrazo, muchas bendiciones.
Shout out to Against the Ropes. You know what mine is? Let's box, bitches. It's almost fight night.
Shout out to Against the Ropes. Thank you for the support. Keep doing your thing. You're doing a great job. So thank you and best wishes.
Against the Ropes. Huge shout out to Against the Ropes. Against the Ropes.
Shout out to Against the Ropes. Thank you guys for the interview, and hope to see you guys soon.
Against the Ropes, always doing the right thing.
Shout out to Against the Ropes, man. I appreciate you guys for having me, taking the time out y'all day.
Against the Ropes, #1.
Freddie Roach.
Thank you very much.